today that we can make as interactive as we want, and with a small group of interested people. And I know Bianca and Shannon are also really in their daily work and their studies really interested in these issues today. We will have the opportunity to learn and to discuss and make this a nice hour. So for time's sake, I think we have until about 4:45. Is that true? Yeah.
Yep.
And the recording has started. And Lianne, can you share the screen?
I have started sharing my screen.
Okay. So.
Is it
Oh
visible to
yeah.
everyone?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I clicked it away. Now I can see it.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it's
can you proceed to the next slide?
yep.
And just you know, before introducing the program of this session and the talks of today, just wanted to show the outcome of this brief consultation that was done in the UK last year and mentioned in the paper that Lianne will also be talking about. A survey among British educational professionals working in schools and child welfare organizations, 642 of them, and asked, if you're making plans, if you're thinking about, how to deal with issues or making care plans for children or for groups of children, what kind of theories do you draw upon? And it's clear from this graph that when they mention a theory, attachment theory is the one that pops to mind most often. Still, of course, it's mentioned in 11%, so it's not the majority, but of the range of theories that people draw upon, attachment theory is the one that clearly stands out. And especially if you also include attachment disorder, which is mentioned also somewhere in the middle, then it becomes even more impressive. It's one of the few named theories that people in practice draw upon. Going to the next slide. But there's also, so it's nice to be involved with a theory and doing research in the field that's being recognized as germane and relevant to providing care and doing interventions with families and children. But there are also some issues around this in the translation or the mistranslation between research and practice. So we will have 3 talks. The first, for those unfamiliar, and there won't be so many in there, but perhaps looking online with the theory, what do I see? It's my subjective point of view as the current rundown on the theory. Then Lianne will be talking about, on the basis of a paper that she co-authored with Robbie Tuchinski, on that there are, attachment is a word and it's a research subject, but it's also a research subject used with a particular and many different meanings. And this creates a lot of confusion that Lianne will be talking about. And that also Or Dagan, who is joining us from New York. So very glad to have you here, Or, in Amsterdam. We'll be talking about as a psychotherapist and a researcher, he encounters this confusion, both in the popular discourse as well as practice. And then, perhaps also from a therapeutic and attachment theoretical point of view. So what can we learn if we try to interpret this confusion? Is perhaps the agenda of attachment research misaligned with issues that people are actually concerned with. So when they mishear and misinterpret the theory, are they mishearing it because they are really looking for something else than what attachment theory is studying? And if that is the case, what can we do about this? It's still legitimate to study something that is unknown and people are not aware of, and we can inform the public about this. But is there also something that we can do in addition to that, which could make our work more relevant? So this is the plan for today, and really encourage you all to join in with your questions. You can use the chat function or just unmute and put in your own experiences or questions or issues as we go along. So, Liana. Yeah, here you see a picture of what we regard in our field as the two founders of modern attachment theory and attachment research. To the right, John Bowlby, British child psychologist, trained first as a psychoanalytic therapist, but then dissatisfied and doing tremendous theoretical work, pulling from different disciplines and ideas to provide an alternative to psychoanalytic thinking regarding the role of parent-child relationships. Providing us with a definition, Liana, could you click, of the phenomenon of attachment, so another click, that provides an important basis for our work. We are talking about an affectional bond, a bond, so a glue that pulls people together by offering a motivation to seek the company and the proximity of another person, or the comfort. And this is something that, on the basis of ethology, evolutionary psychology, is something that the basis of which is present already in infants at birth and then develops in interaction with the environment. But what happens in the environment, and another click, may be very different. His co-worker, Mary Ainsworth, trying to understand how children come into the world and what are the key dimensions that in which environments can differ, focused on the issue of sensitive responsivity, which is defined, next click, as a very important person, the attachment figure, who may be able or less able to notice, interpret, and respond to the child's bids and signals that are due to be sent out to, so which in the first instance are about the need for attachment. So these are kind of the two major achievements of the and insights in the field, that an inborn characteristic in infants and an important dimension in the behavior of caregivers kind of interact and provide an important foundation for later development. Next click. It's all around and not also limited to humans. There's a nice YouTube video. And actually, with a couple of attachment researchers on Twitter, we use the hashtag attachment in action. So if you go on Twitter and type in attachment in action, you see kind of the videos and examples, sometimes photos that colleagues have been collecting over the years as very nice examples of a basic phenomenon that once you are aware of it, you can see all around, and especially in highly emotionally charged situations. The separations at the Mexican border that went on very dramatically a few years ago. The pandemic that's also led to separations between parents and children, especially children with special care needs who were living not with their parents, which was very dramatic. And now currently, of course, also seeing in refugee situations that stress is very much heightened. Children experience a strong sense of need to proximity to parents, but that's not always guaranteed, and they need extra confirmation that the parent will be around. Next slide. Which also illustrates the universality claim within the theory. Mary Ainsworth, having learned about the concept, went with her husband to Uganda, did ecological study of the parent-child interactions there, and started to notice various different patterns in attachment behavior. That's when she went to the US and started her own research line, primed her to see the same type of patterns in a laboratory situation, that she developed the strange situation procedure, which is on the next slide, which is a tool that is still around and still used all around the world. A structured observation, and so you may be aware of this procedure, but used in research where a mother or a father or another potential attachment figure come in with the child, a new unfamiliar room, then is joined by a research associate who is unknown to the child, which may already be a cue for danger to the child, but most children are comfortable enough to engage, as you see in the second picture with the stranger with the both have dark hair, while the mother is leaving for a first separation, and this activates attachment behavior, which you see in the first separation in the picture in the middle, which usually leads to proximity. And we repeat this to be absolutely sure that this is something which happens. But then Ainsworth discovered that there are different ways in which children respond to being separated and reunited. Some with the expectable pattern of seeking proximity and then being reassured and then orienting towards the toys, but others showing a more avoidant pattern and not showing much responsiveness to the caregiver or attention away from the caregiver, or others focusing really hard on her, or others showing a disorganized pattern. So next slide. This is the reunion. So this work that Ainsworth did made an enormous impact, and still making enormous impact. This is citations in journal publications of the book that she wrote and published in 1978, which is accumulating to an enormous amount, 20,000 or so citations, which is enormous scientific impact on the field. You see the number of citations, yearly citations, dropping a little bit in the more recent years, but you also see another line going up, and it's not COVID cases, but it's the number of citations to meta-analysis summarizing work, empirical research being done with the strange situation, inspired and based on what Ainsworth published in the book. So, so kind of a second generation effect of her work is being shown in hundreds of studies using the strange situation, and then leading to all kinds of insights that are nicely systematically summarized in meta-analyses that are then used across various fields, not only in attachment field itself, but also beyond to further our understanding of development. So next slide. So we are currently working, and this is a project led by Sherry Madigan and other people in our field involved in trying to summarize all that work done with the strange situation. Sherry and her team collected all the empirical papers using the stress situation that have ever been published and pulled together those data. So this adds up to 21,493 times that these children were being stressed in a stress situation with their mother or with their father or another caregiver, and then being coded for the pattern of attachment. And what you can see in this summary is that in about a little bit over half of the cases we code the attachment relationship as secure. Now, if attachment quality would be a clinical category, then we would be very concerned. Is secure? Yeah, well, the rest is insecure. So there's something really wrong with humankind. That almost half of these relationships are insecure. That's already a source of confusion, and has been a source of confusion in the field in the practical application of our insight early on. Is that insecure has been interpreted as something which is risky, potentially damaging, and a reason for intervention on its own. But we should really carefully think about this, because then we have a huge task ahead if we want to try to correct almost half of all the attachment relationships out there. So a lot of children, and probably it's a small audience, but perhaps some of the people in here have grown up with a relationship with one or both parents, which may have been avoidant or resistant or disorganized. And well, apparently we have made it until this Zoom session, so it's not fatal. Next slide. It is still developmentally significant, though. So yes, being classified as secure in your attachment relationship with your parent has a predictive value for socio-emotional outcomes. It does push you a little bit ahead in life if you think that social competence is a nice thing to have. On average, you have a little bit of a higher chance that you would arrive in a group with heightened social competence. But you still have, also a considerable chance of developing social competence if you are growing up in an insecure relationship. But you just have better odds, and you have also better odds of not having externalizing behavior problems if you are in a secure attachment relationship. For internalizing problems, Or will be talking about this a little bit more, in this particular series of meta-analysis, it does not matter so much. But still, it does provide some information. And this is only looking at one attachment relationship, or may briefly talk about what it means if both your attachment relationships with mother and father are secure or insecure or disorganized. So next slide. So can we do something about this? Well, yes, we can intervene. So the question is, should we? But we know we can. And on average, if we do, the VIPP method is suitable and effective across a number of studies. This is a recent meta-analysis that we did on randomized controlled trials, looking at the effect of the VIPP sensitive discipline intervention on parental behavior, observed parental behavior, which was an effect size of 0.18, statistically significant, and a higher chance of secure attachment. Next slide. And we also, and currently, Kim Starveld in the parallel session is talking about a project in which they try out whether it may also help teachers who are experiencing difficulties in their relationship, in their interaction with their student, young student coming into class, and whether using the same approach helps them to improve the relationship and also the way of providing behavioral control and discipline to a child with emerging behavior problems. Improving the relationship may also improve your ability as a parent to socialize your child towards more cooperative behavior. Next slide. Still, attachment researchers are not sure and are also not don't have consensus about what this scientific insight, which is pretty solid, based on tens of thousands of participants, hundreds of studies, many trials, carefully meta-analysis, but what does it mean for practice? And what we do agree on is that the basic principles are pretty solid, although most research is not really focusing on it. We published a consensus statement last year. It's now translated into French and Spanish also. That what we learn from this type of from this type of research is that it's a valid assumption that children need to experience safe havens provided by particular familiar and non-abusive caregivers. We are kind of sure about this. And that safe, continuous, good enough care is in the child's best interest, and caregivers should be helped to provide it. So what Bowlby assumed as to be a basic human need present from birth, which the child kind of expects when it comes into the world, we still really believe that based on the empirical evidence and the theoretical arguments, which should help make decision making. For example, if there may be a question, is this family a good family for a child to grow up in based on our insights, the security that even an insecure relationship derives, and it may increase the risk for externalizing behavior a little bit, but on the other hand, it's still an organized pattern of trying to maintain emotional security. And that's something really precious to preserve, that is not easily replaced by a foster caregiver or an adoptive caregiver or a professional in a residential treatment setting. So maintain a child's existing safe havens if they don't pose a threat, an important principle that we could agree on, but there are many things we don't agree on. Next slide. So we see, increasing guidelines being published. But also, you can see, and if you know Dutch or are still learning Dutch, you can see, that the terminology is kind of confusing. Problematic attachment. So, research is about insecure and disorganized attachment. So, what is problematic attachment? Attachment disorder. What's that all about? Then the nice guidelines in the UK, in addition to having separate guidelines for issues regarding foster care and adoptive care and residential care, also trying to weave in some of these insights into guidelines for school-based support. But some of these guidelines also contradict each other, so there's clearly some work to do. Next slide. So, that's what was meant as a very brief introduction to what could be the basics of the research. But then, how about the translation and how about the broader impact of the field? And this is something that Liana will pick up.